Hi again, this is Anne-Marie Zanzel, and I'm a lesbian, an ordained minister, and a partner to a wonderful woman, and I coach women through the coming out process later in life. I created this series because I believe that through stories and storytelling, we can learn, discover, and connect with each other. Hearing others' stories always brings us closer together. So I want to introduce my guest tonight is Terri Conroy. We met, I guess, 4 years ago, Terri?
Yeah, about that.
Yep. And we were in a mutual support group that for other women coming out later in life and online, which I think was really helpful to the both of us. And so the thing is, although Terri and I have met before, I don't know her story. So Terri, drum roll, please. Can you tell us your coming out story?
The coming out story. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I guess I always kind of knew I was gay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have an epiphany until I was about early into my 40s. But I just felt like I was different growing up my entire life. I remember when girls were having crushes on boys. I didn't really feel that way towards boys. They were like my buddies, and I liked to ride big wheels and bikes with them
Mm-hmm.
and climb trees, but I really wasn't crushing on them. I was kind of crushing on the girls a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. But there was two things that were ingrained in my brain from childhood, and that was you don't date outside your race, and you are not gay. Very strict upbringing. So those thoughts and feelings kind of just I couldn't have them in my brain. So anytime I kind of had that, it was just like, okay, you can't have that. So this is what you have to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
basically had to learn how
Mm-hmm.
to like that. And I did. I started dating boys, and I was actually married at 18, almost 19, for a year
Oh,
to my high
baby.
school sweetheart, and that didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then about 4 or 5 years later, I met the father of my two children, and I loved these men. I had great relationships with them. I'll talk about my ex-husband actually.
Mm-hmm.
A great guy, great provider. He was solid. He was kind. He was safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted the dream. I wanted the white picket fence and be a stay at home mom. And
Mm-hmm.
he was able to offer that to me. And my family liked him.
Mm-hmm.
So, why
He
not
checked all the
just,
boxes.
yeah, he checked all the boxes. And not to go too deep into my childhood, but my childhood was kind of rocky. And um, I just felt like, all right, I'm really going to be accepted, and just be the good daughter and the good sibling, and marry this guy. So we got married, and we had two kids. I have a 22-year-old son and a daughter that just turned 21, and we had the seemingly perfect life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had the house, and I was a stay-at-home mom for almost 11 years, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did I have a loving relationship with my ex-husband? Absolutely, but it was something was missing. Something was just missing. And I talked to other women, and they say, "Well, how was the sex? Can I talk about this?
Yeah,
How was?"
go for it.
And I'm like, well, I'm a sexual person, and the sex was the sex. Sometimes you just want somebody comfortable in a warm body, and they know you. So
This is how I describe it. It was fine.
it was fine. It was fine. And when I talked to other women, I really didn't concentrate too much on my sexuality while
Mm-hmm.
my kids were toddlers. It was all about raising kids.
Mm-hmm.
Did I have sex? Yeah, like maybe once every 3 months, and I was fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all about raising the kids. What happened was I got older,
Mm-hmm.
and got older, and I moved from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to New Jersey, and I just started really evaluating my life. Uh,
Well, you were what,
And
42?
I was about 42.
Yeah, that's perfect timing to evaluate your life.
Yeah, and I was just something was just missing, and these thoughts and feelings were creeping back into my head, and I just basically had an opportunity to I'm going to put this I had an opportunity
To
to
explore.
explore, and I took it.
Mhm.
Um, and once I did that, I remember having a conversation with my sister and saying, "I think I'm bisexual," but all the while in my head saying, "Oh no."
Yeah.
And then an opportunity came up again with that same woman, and it solidified it for me. And
Mhm.
within 3 months, I think I came out.
Wow. So, how was that for you? So you come are you from Philadelphia?
I am
Okay.
originally from
What
Philadelphia.
part of Philly are you from?
I lived in the Parkwood
Or what
section.
okay. And what was
Parkwood
it like
section.
growing up in Philadelphia?
Philadelphia, I enjoyed it. It was, a lot of the houses were like row houses, if you know what a row
Mhm.
house
Oh, I
is.
know. I've been to Philly a bunch of times.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, everybody on the block, all the kids played together and rode their bikes and we played street hockey and, it was fun. I enjoyed
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Enjoyed it.
So Irish family, you look Irish. Are you Irish?
Irish, English Irish. Yeah. A smidge of
Irish
German.
Irish family from Philadelphia. So, what was it like when you came out? Sorry,
So,
all the wonderful Irish families from
so I
Philadelphia.
should say that prior to me coming out, I always said that I was not going to be my kids would never have parents that were divorced. I was
Yeah.
dead set, hell bent that I was not going to be have my kids go through a divorce. I'm a
Yeah,
product of
you
a
both
divorced family,
you did. Mhm. You did.
and just swore that that wasn't going to be it. But I guess about 3 years prior to coming out, I had conversations with my ex-husband. I said, I'm just not happy, and you know, not an emotional guy, kind, generous provider, but just
No
not
emotional connection.
at all. And he would just say, his response was, "We just need to have more sex." And I'm like, no, don't
No,
think
I
that's
don't think that's it.
so I guess we had that conversation every once in a while, and he would just kind of blow it off. And if I didn't bring it up again, that it was just status quo, and you just go through the motions. And we got along. We
Mhm.
didn't fight. We didn't argue. Um, but I guess from what I should say, from that time that we started talking about the divorce till until I actually came out, was really tough for me. I started doing some drinking
Mhm.
more so than I wanted to, and just kind of masking that. And when I came out, I decided to just really get a handle on being healthy, and
Mhm.
started running, started working out. Um, Not saying that I don't imbibe every once in a while, but I definitely don't drown my sorrows like I used to. So the first thing I did was I told him, listen, this divorce is going to happen. We need to separate. We need to split up. And
Mhm.
then after we did, about 3 months after that is when I came out.
Mhm.
And that was about 3 months after I had that first encounter.
Mhm. So it's pretty quick.
Yeah, I didn't just come out of the closet. I was like,
You burst the door down.
"Yay!"
I'm here.
But you know what? That's me. Like, if I am dead set on something, um, I tend not to wait.
Mhm.
I don't want to wait. I feel like life should be lived, and I waited long enough, and this is just something that I needed to do.
Mhm.
He just, I remember sitting down with him and saying, I have to tell you something, and it's really hard. And I started to cry because I don't like to hurt anybody. I hate hurting.
Mhm.
And he thought I was going to tell him that I was dying. But I told him, I said, listen, I'm gay, and it doesn't have anything to do with you. I know the stigma's out there. This isn't something that you did. And he just kind of smiled and he said, I don't believe that. He said, I believe that you're, well, no, he was telling me that he didn't believe that I turned like he turned me gay. He believed that you were born this way, and he just wanted me to be happy. Uh,
Wow, he was pretty
and that's
generous.
good. But
Yeah.
that was in 2014,
Hmm.
and we have not had a conversation about that since. Our conversations have strictly been about kids and things that needed to be tied up and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But
Did he
never.
remarry? Did he remarry or anything?
No, I don't think he's ever had a girlfriend.
Wow.
No,
Yeah.
my kids, when I moved to Tennessee, did not want to move with me.
Hmm.
Um, my daughter goes to college here, and my son has a job. Well,
Hmm.
my daughter now has a job as well.
Hmm.
But they didn't want to make the move. Everything's here. And it's funny. They said, well, we can't leave dad. And it's just amazing. Like my daughter said to me, well, mom, you're versatile. Like you can go and do, and you'll be fine. And we just worry about dad. And
So
so,
they wanted to take care of him.
yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, he hasn't had a girlfriend yet. He needs one.
It's really interesting. I asked the question because sometimes people have some really varied feelings about that. Like they're, even though they want to be divorced or they're ready to move on, when their significant other from their past relationship has a girlfriend, they're like, it's really hard sometimes. And so I was wondering if that was like that for you. So you're coming, like when you came out to your family and your children, what happened? How was it? Was it okay? Well, just tell me.
Okay, well, the first people I came out to, I guess, were my sisters. My sisters and my best friends. My best friends were like, "Oh, we knew." I'm like,
Doesn't
"Really?"
surprise me.
And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, we knew." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that." My sisters, not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, my younger sister was like, "Really?" But we're 8 years younger, and I think there's just, because the age we weren't that close. But my older sisters were all like within 3 years of each other. They
Hmm.
were like, "Oh yeah, we see that."
Hmm.
Um,
How many in your family?
I actually have a blended family. I have two stepsisters, um, a sister who is half. We have the same father, different mother. And then I have one sister who, I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, we
My,
did.
my sister dropped over. And I have a sister where we have the same mother and same father.
Okay. So lots of girls.
All girls
Are you the only gay person in your family?
that I'm aware of.
I got it. But I understand. So
Uh,
your kids, you told your family everybody was pretty cool. That's nice.
yeah. Yeah. Well, my dad and stepmother, that was a different story. I told them we went out to dinner. My older sister was with me for support. It's funny, we were having her sitting there having dinner, and my sister was going through a divorce around the same time, and she was talking about this new guy she was dating, and my dad looked at me and he said, so who are you dating, what's her name? But he was joking, and
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
oh. I'm like,
Well, Dad.
well, by the way, her name is, and he's like, what? He's like, I'm kidding. I'm like, I'm not. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I'm gay. And he said, oh, that's sick. I do not approve of that. I do not approve of that. And I said, well, Dad, I said, I'm not sick. I'm 42 and I'm not asking for your approval, but I just want you to know.
Hmm.
And at this time, I still had my long blonde curly hair and
Hmm.
I looked more feminine
Terri
presenting.
has changed significantly since I
Yeah,
first
yeah.
met
I feel
her.
more comfortable being my look now.
Yeah.
But my stepmother said, I don't understand it. You're such a pretty girl. And growing up, this is one of the things that I heard, that the reason why women become lesbians is because they're ugly and they can't find a man.
Well, which is ridiculous, right?
It's ridiculous.
Absolutely, absolutely
Are
ridiculous.
we that forgiving? Like, I want a hot chick.
Well, the funny thing is that though, I think for like our generation, since they're, and you're younger than me, but for our generation, there was such as like there was no representation other
Right.
than a lot of times like butch lesbians, and if you didn't identify on that like masculine of center, you're like, well, wait a minute, I don't look like that, so I can't be, right?
right.
especially if you were presenting as, more feminine at that time. And so I'm like so happy now that the kids have all kinds of representation and
Oh,
they can
yeah.
see all kinds of lesbians and trans people and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, well, good. At least they can see this and know that that's a possibility for them. Because
Yeah.
growing up in the 80s and 90s
Yeah,
and
we didn't have that.
coming through the AIDS crisis, where there was rampant homophobia,
Oh, yeah.
there was no representation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So my kids, I'll finish telling you about that. My kids, my daughter actually found out, um, I was texting my first girlfriend and she happened to see she saw me enter my code. She was a sneaky little 13-year-old and she saw me enter my code. She thought something was up. So she went into my phone and she saw my text messages. So she wanted to know who my first girlfriend's name was Melissa. And she wanted to know who Mel was. I couldn't lie to her. She saw the texts. I mean, they weren't racy texts, but you could tell that we were interested in each other.
Mhm.
So I told her, and I just want you to be you and be happy. And I'm not happy that you and dad are getting divorced. But I want you to just be you. And so she was really, really great with that.
She's
And
amazing. That's
yeah,
for a 13-year-old.
yeah,
She hit it out of the ballpark, man.
she did. And I
Yeah.
told her, I said, listen, we're going to keep this on the down low, for school. I don't want, because, at this time we were moved over here in New Jersey and the school district's very small.
Mhm.
And I said, we'll keep it on the down low. I understand how kids can be. And she said, excuse me, she said, fuck that. Said, and I allow my kids to curse to a certain extent. She said, fuck that. She said, if anybody says anything, I'll punch him in the face. And my daughter's not an aggressive person, but
Mhm.
I'm like, okay. She said, I don't care who knows. She said,
Mhm.
you be you. I'm like,
Mhm.
all right. So I told my son, I said, listen, I have something to tell you. I'm gay. He's like, oh, okay. Is that why you and dad are getting divorced? I said, well, not solely, but yeah, pretty much. I didn't want to complicate it too much. He's like, okay. He's like, are you happy? I said, yeah. He's like, all right, cool. Can we have pizza for dinner?
How old
That,
was he?
he was 15 at the time, but
Okay,
he's
so yeah.
22 now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Both of your kids, it was a real non-event.
yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you, I know everybody's story is different and everybody's circumstances are different, but when I hear people that are just going through the messy middles and, my significant other now is going through that. One of the things that I said to my ex-husband was, regardless of what's going on with us, we have to make this as least painful for the kids as we can.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to move away. We're all going to stay in the same neighborhood. We lived to this day, he's a mile from me.
Mhm.
We lived in different households, but he was around the corner. So we never took the kids out of their school. Like we attended functions together.
Mhm.
We just tried to make it as painless as possible for them. Um,
Well, that's really extraordinary. So that requires two parents being really committed to that, and that a lot of times that doesn't happen, right?
yeah, and I'm sure he had some hurt. He never
Mhm.
just the type of person he is, he's not one to show that. And he could have been nasty with his hurt and anger, but he
Mhm.
wasn't. He was just
Mhm.
always, and still to this day, we're not best friends.
Mhm.
Has he done some passive aggressive things? And absolutely.
Mhm.
But was he ever nasty to me in front of the kids? No, never was. Still to this day is not.
Mhm.
And I think that's super impressive.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As you started to come out, what was some of the things that surprised you? Like that you didn't expect? And it's a new culture, right? I mean, when you come out later in life, all of a sudden, we've been on the straight path for a really long time. And all of a sudden at 40 or 50 or 30, you're learning a completely new culture. What surprised you the most?
Ooh,
Besides, the usual.
besides the great thoughts.
Yeah, besides that.
Um, wow, what surprise? I guess the one thing that just pops into my head is how emotions were okay.
Mm,
Like, I'm an emotional person, not afraid of it. I had to learn to be that way whenever I had children. But I decided that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to show my kids positivity.
mhm,
Being in a marriage that, even though there was love, emotion was never expressed really.
mm,
And growing up, emotion was never expressed unless it was anger.
mhm.
And one of the things that I found in the gay community is, whether you were interested in somebody in that way or not, or just a friend, there was a lot of openness, a lot of acceptance. And I just thought that was the greatest thing.
Mhm.
It's different than the straight friends and straight relationships that I've had.
They're just of having done both, they're just different.
They are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and until you've experienced that, like being in straight mommy world, it's different than being in a group of lesbians, like having a party or something like that.
Right.
It's just different.
Absolutely.
And both have value. It's I and as somebody who identifies as a lesbian, I really appreciate being in a group of my people. And like when you said something, it was like something was missing, and that's how I feel. It was like there was something missing in my life, and it's so funny. Everybody I've talked to always talk about like they had the white picket fence, they had everything, and you're like,
Yeah.
there's still something missing, and you're trying to figure it out. And for me, it was my sexual orientation. And like you, I was also I was always dimly aware of it. Like I sort of had this sneaking suspicion I was, but I
Yeah.
would just there's a famous saying in the mutual support group that Terry and I are in is like, straight girls don't lie awake at night wondering if they're gay.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
I spent a lot of nights awake, but you seem to be much more decisive than I did was, and you made your mind up really, really fast. Another thing for me about the queer community, and one of the things what I've noticed about when women or men come out later in life is that they do a lot of work on their internalized homophobia. Like they work like on you said like you couldn't be gay, like that was something that was a message in your youth, and then you obviously have worked through that. you know but one thing that surprised me is like people who've been out for a while um sometimes do have a lot of internalized homophobia and haven't really dealt with some of the things that I think when you come out later in life, you really have to deal with because it's what's kept you in the closet.
Right. And with the internalized homophobia, that, because I actually just read up on this, it's being ashamed to admit that you are.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So, um, I was going to ask one question. Hold on one second. So, when you were coming out, a lot of times people talk about worrying about being accepted by people who've been out for a while. What was your experience? Like, were you accepted? Was it scary? I mean, what happened?
Mostly for me, it's been positive.
Me
Uh,
too.
really haven't had, I mean, aside from my father and my stepmother with their comments.
But I mean, like the queer community. Like
Oh, the queer community.
when you've gone out and you've said to somebody, "Oh, I just came out a couple years ago," or something like that. What?
Um, I found it to be very accepting.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was also not one to announce that so much. I mean, if
Mhm.
I had a conversation with somebody, um, like in a meetup group or something, that was something, but it wasn't like, "Hi, I'm Terry and I've just been out for a
Yeah,
week."
that was something I didn't announce either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where, like, my boss had, like, knew I was going, separated, and he's like, "So when you going to get out there and start dating guys?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm dating, but I'm dating women." And he gave me a high five and he's like, "Good for you." It's like I never really made that announcement. It's just,
Mhm.
you know, this is me. Now, I think maybe there was somewhat of an announcement whenever
Your look?
when I changed my look. I started dressing more of how I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
And then people were like, whoa.
So let me ask you.
I didn't have to tell people I was a lesbian then.
No, I think it's apparent. So so talk about changing your look, because again, back to the mutual support group, a lot of people are like, I'm cutting my hair because I want to look more gay. And like my famous favorite comment that somebody once said, she says, if you want to see what a lesbian looks like, look in the mirror.
Right. There
I
you go.
just loved that comment because I thought, yeah, that's true. Because I'm somebody who didn't change my look at all. I mean, not that short hair has anything to do with it, but
Right.
I've always had very short hair and, and dressed pretty much like a chapstick lesbian,
Right.
but you had long blonde hair, and how did you change? And how
Yeah.
did it happen?
Well, I'd have to say throughout my life, I went from really long hair to really short hair all my
Back
life.
and forth?
Yeah, back and forth. Even when I was a child, well, when I was a child, it was always short. And I think that was just for, because there was a lot of kids and they just wanted, it's easier. But when I got older, I let it grow. And then I remember the weekend I came home from my honeymoon, I chopped it all off and it was like really short. And I did that probably about 4 times throughout my adulthood until I decided to cut it again. I just always felt, I don't know how to describe, I just always felt more confident,
Mm-hmm.
more at ease. Um, I think the only way I can really describe it is when I had the hair, I felt like I was hiding.
Mm-hmm.
When I had women's clothes on, I felt like I was hiding.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I didn't, not that I didn't like some of the women's clothes, but a lot of them are uncomfortable. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
men's clothes are just so comfortable and the pockets are deeper and there's just so many different things.
Yeah.
But with the haircut, I remember dating. She was like my first lesbian love.
Mm-hmm.
You met her,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I had long hair at the time, and I remember telling her that I just really wish I could cut my hair, but I was afraid what people thought. I was with her almost a year and a half. She actually helped me become this.
Mm-hmm.
She helped me become comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And although that relationship didn't work out, I
Mm-hmm.
am so grateful that she gave me that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
said, you know what, who cares? You're you. And if you feel more comfortable wearing t-shirts and sneakers and short hair, then do it. Just be
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And since when I went from that transition to long hair and, covering, just wearing like different clothing that I wasn't happy with, like dresses to weddings and stuff, um, friends, family saw a change in me. They saw me become more confident.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd walk into a room and I would be smiling. I wouldn't be like kind of like my
Mm-hmm.
shoulders were, my whole affect had changed.
Mm-hmm.
And, but people's perception of that, I guess some were shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Some told me that they liked me better with long hair. And
Mm-hmm.
my response was, I like me better with short hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, well, then you do you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a good look for you. You look very good like that. You
Thank
know,
you.
it really is. It works for you. It's really interesting because my partner, she's been out for gazillion million years, like
Mhm.
she'll kill me if I say how much. Um, but
I know how old he is.
huh? But she, it's really interesting because I'm probably one of the more femme women she's been with. And so being with me gave her permission to move more towards the more masculine of center, more she's always worn men's clothes for years. Like her mother used to give her a really hard time every time she had super short hair and stuff like that, and now she dresses like that, and it was really interesting to watch because um being around us all, because she was around us, or all the people that were doing all this transformation stuff, it allowed her and gave her permission to become more of herself in her lesbian identity, which is more, sort of, her friends sort of tease her. They call her a band-aid butch because she can put it off, take it off and put it on.
I've never heard of that term. That's
It's,
awesome.
it's one we make up. I've got a whole bunch of made up ones. But
Love it.
if she wants to, she can look more feminine, but typically she dresses very, much more masculine than
Right.
she used to years ago. And so there's pictures of her in these flowery blouses and stuff like that. But now she dresses much more butch.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you. It's been really interesting talking to you, Terri. I really, really enjoyed it, and hearing your story and everything. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk today. And so I've got my 3 questions for you.
All righty.
Which I warned you about.
Yes.
What is your coming out song?
Coming out song. I don't think it came out at the time, but can I use it if it's a newer one?
Mm-hmm.
I like Broken But Beautiful.
Oh, who's that by?
By Kelly Clarkson.
Ah, that's a nice song.
Yeah, it's not about perfection, but it's about owning who you are and your faults and flaws, and you're still beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, second question. Last movie or book that changed your perspective?
I would have to say what I'm currently reading now, and that's Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. Anything by Brene Brown is incredible.
I love her.
Yeah.
Someday I would like to meet her. That's like one of my lifetime goals. You know that?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I also like that. So for anybody who's watching this, who is thinking about coming out later in life, she just does, like, what she talks about is what the later in life journey is. I feel like, she talks about like the power of vulnerability, which is a very famous TED talk that she did. And it's like coming out when you're 40, 30, 40, or 50 is perhaps the most vulnerable thing you can do in a very heteronormative society. And it's about letting go of fear, and you're finding your authentic self. So everything she talks about is really what happens to you when you come out later in life. It is such a learning experience about yourself and about who you are and stuff. So that's why I love Brene Brown.
Yeah, she's awesome. And that vulnerability, that was incredible.
Yeah, yeah. So best thing about your life right now?
Oh, the best thing about my life right now is which just happened to me this week. I got a permanent work from home position.
Cool.
I can move back to New Jersey. I can pursue a new love.
Mm-hmm.
Happens to live in the same state as me, which is unheard of. And yeah, and just life is good. Life is good. Just I guess using your word, being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more rewarding than being able to show yourself, and not necessarily having people accept it, but just being who you are. I think that's got to be the most rewarding thing. Accepting yourself, not looking for others to accept you.
Yeah, and I think that's like one of the biggest learning curves in this, is that a lot of us, the reason we got to where we were, like in a straight life when we really didn't belong there, was because we learned how to people please a long time ago. And so coming out later in life teaches you not to really care what other people think.
Oh yeah.
And just care about what you think, and maybe a handful of other people, but like the greater, like, you have, because one thing is that we have to learn not to care about what other people think, because people can be tough to the LGBTQ community. And so
Absolutely.
learning not to care and just being authentically who you are is really, it's real, that journey of coming out later teaches you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, honey bun. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I really, really appreciate it. And
thank you for the forum. It's hopefully I can give some insight and hope to somebody else out there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the women are doing that because they're just so they just want to share what's happened to them because it's and that we can do it. You can do this. I know sometimes people are like, I don't think I can do this. And when way back, I spent 6 months in the fetal position,
Yeah.
deciding whether I could do it or not. And then I think finding other people that share this story because I think sometimes we think we're the only ones,
Right.
right? When we start, and then, oh, who's who's listening, there is a whole lot of us out
Yeah.
there.
And
Yeah.
that's how I found the group. I thought I was the only one. I was out for a couple years and I Googled coming out later in life and boom, that's how
Yeah. And
I
I Googled later in life lesbian. And actually I had tried to come out like a couple times before and I just lost my nerve or couldn't find anybody or like talk to somebody who had this horrible experience. And then when I got into the group I was like, oh my god, there are other people like me.
yeah, same
Like
thing.
all these women talking about this attraction to women and I was like, I thought I was the only one.
Right, exactly.
And then you find out you're not.
Yeah, very cool feeling, very cool.
All righty. Well, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Have a
Yep,
nice Christmas and Happy New Year. If I don't
you
talk,
too. Okay. Bye-bye.
take care. Bye-bye.